All right. So welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. My name is Jeremy Rock-Smith. I'm the chef at Kripalu, which is a really large yoga center in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. So that's where I am right now. It's snowing here. It feels like we've been in a snow globe for like 5 days. And this is my daughter, Jasmine. Jasmine's been cooking with me since you were two, maybe three, and was like helping me flip pancakes and stuff like that. And she's actually at a point now that when I get home sometimes, she's made dinner for me at this point. So I don't know how many people want to be able to do that. It's kind of awesome. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus in on this recipe. And a lot of times with cooking, people feel like, like it's learning recipes. What we're going to focus in on today is behind each recipe, there's methods that you have to apply. And you'll find that like some of the methods that we'll use for the chili today might be for one of the soups that you guys ate the other day. They're the same exact things that kind of get carried over. So I'm going to break down those techniques as we go along. All right. So first thing we're going to do, you guys have some rice. We're going to cook some simple rice for the chili. We're going to start off nice and easy. All right. So I've got a cup of rice right here. Okay. And don't stress it, but usually I like to rinse it beforehand. If you haven't, it's not a big deal, but a good idea is to take a thin strainer and just basically add your rice to it and then run it under water really quick. And that gets off any dust, particles, things like that, and also takes away some of the starch. Have you ever had rice that's really sticky and almost sticky and gooey together? The reason why is because of the starch and also how it's cooked, all right? So Jazzy, why don't you do me a favor? What we're going to do is we're going to take the small pot. You've got a small pot on deck, and we're going to add the rice right to it. Go ahead and add that rice, Jazzy. All right. Now, rice is interesting. Rice is obviously dry, okay? So it's considered a staple. And staple ingredients, staple products are like beans, rice, things that are harvested fresh and or dried that can kind of live in your pantry for a long period of time, but are eaten pretty frequently. So rice is definitely one of them. Can you guys think of any other staples? What's a staple in your pantry? You can unmute and tell me.
Or raw rice.
Wild rice? You like wild rice?
Raw. I said raw.
Oh, raw. You got raw rice in your pantry? All right, cool. Does anybody got any olives in their pantry? Nah, I don't like olives. All right, so we've got that in there, okay? Things that are dry but harvested fresh, exactly. All right, so we've got to add some water to this, okay? So there's a ratio. Because rice is dry, we've got to add water to it so it can get nice and fluffy. But the trick is if you add too much moisture to it, what happens to it, Jazzy?
It gets
gummy, kind of explodes. Yes. And what it is if you look at the rice, it can only absorb a certain amount of liquid. Otherwise, the liquid just stops absorbing and the rice gets really mushy. So it's important, and each rice is different. So for this one, the basmati or a jasmine rice, that's your white rices, a little more delicate, we need 1.5 cups of water, okay? So that's easy. So if you're looking at a measuring spoon, at a measuring cup, right? You've got 2 cups, and each cup is filled with ounces. So there's 8 ounces in a cup. Can anybody tell me what a half cup would be? How many ounces? I knew this kid's gonna nail it. I see the gears working. I knew that. So it's 4 ounces. So we need 12 ounces total, which is 1.5 cups, okay? So we're gonna add a little water to it. Right, I had my pan heating just a little bit, but go ahead and add your water. I'm going to change the screen. Check this out so you guys can see what's going on in here. All right, so we've got our rice in here, okay? And the trick is with rice is you want to put it on and put it on like low, like a medium low. And what we want to do is we want this to be able to slowly steam so that the rice can slowly absorb that water. If we boil it too hard, what do you boil really hard? Like pasta, things like that? It's different. If we boil it too hard, the rice is just going to break down. So we go slow and low. And what happens as we're cooking this, you're going to see the moisture slowly disappear as the rice absorbs it. And ideally at the end, the rice will absorb all the water and it'll be perfect. All right. So put your burners on low, and what you can do is kind of push that to the back burner of the stove. So when we're looking at like a stove top, The front two burners are obviously the things that you want to start, the things that you need to work with fast. But things like rices, things that take a long time, that go slow and low, you always just put them to the back burner and let them go on their own, and that leaves you room to do other things, okay? So I'm going to put these back on my stove top.
What do you not want to do with that rice, Jeremy?
Well, I'm just about to get there. Right? Mary knows me well, all right? So when we get that rice, the most important thing to do, or I should say don't do, is do not stir the rice. If you stir it while it's cooking, what's going to happen is that rice is going to end up becoming like risotto. It becomes really creamy. It can also become half cooked and half raw at the same time, which we've discovered in the past, Jasmine. All right. Now, one of the things about rice, let's talk about it. Like, so rice, when they harvest it, it grows in water, paddies, right? And they have these harvest festivals. And rice is left to dry. And the more expensive and the better rice is the rice that's dried longer. Okay, there's actually parts of the world where they have rice ceremonies where they'll actually put the rice in, and in 3 years it's harvested, and that's the best rice. Most of the rice that we get living in the United States has only been dried for 6 months, so it tends to be wetter. So you really have to watch how much moisture you add into it. All right? Does everybody have their rice in their pot? Give me some. You guys know how to put the hand waves on your stuff? If you know how to put the little hand waves, the reactions, does anybody know how to do that?
There you go.
All right, give me the thumbs up if you've got your rice. Let me know. Give me the thumbs up. You guys are killing it.
Oh, yeah.
Right on. Angela, you better get on it, all right? Where's Jody? Jody, where's my thumbs up, Jody? All right. You guys are all cranking, all right? So that's slow and low. So how long do you cook it? Honestly, you got to set a timer. It depends. If it's a larger quantity of rice, it's going to take what, Jazzy?
20 minutes.
Right? 20 minutes, going to take longer. Smaller quantities might take 12 to 15 minutes, okay? So how long I usually cook it is until my friend Mary here on the call goes, hey, Jeremy, what about the rice? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about the rice because I always forget about it on the back burner. So you guys do me a favor. As we're making the chili, keep an eye out. Maybe in like 10 minutes, go, hey, Jeremy, hey, chef, what about the rice? All right, remind me. All right, let's start our chili. All right, so chili comes from, there's a lot of stories about where chili comes from. Some people say it came from Spain in the 1600s. There was a sister who lived in the church that would have these dreams at night, right? She had these visions sort of things. And the story goes, this is the rumor, that she had a dream one night of this recipe. And when she awoke the next day, she created this dish with peppers, onions, and traditionally meat, and made the first chili con carne, all right? There's another rumor that it was in the 1800s was the first time it was served in Chicago at the World's Fair. And you'll find that with food. Food has a long story because things kind of travel. But usually where you see chili from, think about it, where would it be? In the Southwest, Mexico,
Yeah.
right? And what's the biggest state in the United States that's in the South? Does anybody know? What is it? Throw it in the chat.
Texas. I have
That's
no
it.
idea, but
Exactly, the Longhorn State, all right? A lot of people say there was another story that it was a gentleman. The first written recipe for chili was by a person in Houston, Texas in the 1800s, all right? So it's all over the place. But what makes chili chili? The original one had meat, and it was onions, spices, chili peppers, right? And so usually venison, something like that, wild game. And then eventually beans kind of made their way into it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a vegetable chili today, all right? So you should have on your stovetop, a decent sized pot. It can be smaller than this, maybe like a 2-quart pot. Just have your parents get it on the stovetop for you. Doesn't need to be turned on. It should have a lid though, but we'll use that in a little bit, all right? So how many people cut their vegetables already? How many? Nice. So we're going to show you, I'll show you how I cut the vegetables, and then Jasmine's going to cut the other half to show you how she does it, okay? So first things first, how many people had their parents cut the onion? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. See if you can carry that on in your adulthood, because onions make you do what? Cry. Was your mom or dad crying while they were cutting that onion? Ask them if they have a trick to not cry.
I don't know why, but my I just eat onions raw, and I don't cry.
Really? Actually,
Good for you.
there was a kid. Wait a minute. Who was that?
I forget her name, but she was actually from Italy, and she could take an onion and put it up to her nose and breathe in really deeply, and she was totally fine, like no difference in her facial.
She would rub it on her eye. It was crazy. She was like
Ah.
7 or 8 years old.
Okay, that's way out of my reach.
You're not going there? But onions. So here's what happens when you cut onions, okay? There's 2 compounds within the onion, right? An onion is in the allium family. The allium family is, think onions, leeks, anything that's kind of astringent and bitter. You see a lot of them in the springtime, okay? But there's 2 compounds that come together that when you cut the onion the first time, they don't know each other. But when you cross-cut them, which I'll show you in a second, they meet for the first time. And they're like, hey, how's it going? Hey, what are you doing? What shall we do? And they're like, we should make everybody cry that's cutting us. And that's what they do going forward, basically. It's like the onion protecting itself. So there's some tricks to not cry, and I'm going to tell you guys, and you can pass it on to your parents, okay? So one thing you can do is before you cut your onions, like an hour before, put them in the refrigerator, okay? Cooling the onion will stop it from burning. When I work at Kripalu, we do 400,000 meals a year. We go through probably 8,000 to 10,000 pounds of onions. So they peel a lot, and we'll put them all in a giant walk-in, and then we peel them at once, all right? The other thing you can do, all right, once you get in there, some people will light a candle next to the onion, right? And I used to make fun of that. I was like, why? Does it just like provide light? No, when you have fire or a candle or a burner on your stove next to you on while you're cutting, it actually draws the gases away from you, okay? But here's what I recommend. The trick is this. If you've got glasses or goggles, you can put those on right when you go to cut them. Put some goggles on, they'll take it away. If you don't have any goggles, here's the trick. Don't be like the girl that we knew, right? You don't want to stand up. What you won't want to do is breathe through your nose while you're cutting the onion. You're just going to kind of breathe through your mouth at that point. Once you breathe through your nose, it's all done, all right? So I'm going to change the screen. I'm going to show you how I cut this, all right? So check it out. So we have the onion here, okay? So I'm going to take off both peels. And then if you look here, there's like a little root right in the center of it. I'm going to split it right in half. And what that does is it keeps all the little layers of the onion together so it doesn't spread out everywhere, okay? Now here's a funny thing. A lot of this stuff is considered waste, right? In a lot of places like the onion scraps. What we do in our kitchens is we don't want to waste food, right? They say a lot of food gets wasted and thrown away. These scraps we actually will save, and we make stocks. And stocks are liquids that we use to make soup, so therefore we don't waste any more food, all right? So this is how I cut my onion. If you look at this way, you guys see that? The lines of the onion go this way. That's considered cutting with the grain, and the root is right here. That root's going to keep it all together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the bottom, but not through the back. Okay, just like this. It just takes practice, you know? And then when you go here, this is what I got to watch out for. This is when the onion gets me, because now I'm going against that grain that I just showed you, and that's when the gases come together. So then we just kind of go right across here, right? And then when my finger gets in trouble, I just flip it over like that, all right? All right, we're going to let Jasmine try it now. Go for it, Jasmine. All right? So onions, you may be wondering, you're like, why are there onions in everything? And maybe you're not. As you cook more and more, you're going to discover onions are in a lot of things. And the reason why the onions are in a lot of things is because they're the aromatics. They're the foundational flavor for most vegetables. You'll see onions, carrots, and celery are often used, but it's definitely a staple in our chili, okay? There's white onions, red onions. There's onions from Maui, Hawaii that are really sweet. There's white onions. The yellow onion, otherwise known as the Spanish, is the most common onion that you're going to use, okay? So we go right across here. And then I'm going to take a little oil. All right, so now let's click back over to doing our thing, all right? So I've got a little bit of oil. You have your oil on the side. You should have 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Let's talk about measuring. All right. So check it out. We've got all our little spoons. So you've got a 1/4 teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon, and a teaspoon. and then the tablespoon, right? So this is kind of math. This is what I always tell the adults that come to my classes. 3 of these teaspoons equal 1 of these tablespoons. All right? See if you can remember that. 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. If you can remember that when you're reading recipes, you'll always be able to transfer them over really quickly. All right? So let's turn our pans on now to like medium. All right? So that's about halfway. If it's a 10, what would be half a 10? 5. I just saw someone's mouth. Yeah, nice, sister. All right, so 5. All right, so put it up at 5. So I'm going to do 2 tablespoons. Jazzy, go ahead and go right in with the onions. So you need your cup of onions to go into the pan. All right. And then we're going to take some of our salt. Okay. So I want you to take, what do we say, 1/4 teaspoon of your salt. Go ahead, Jazzy. Put that right in our onions. Voila. All right, and give it a good stir. So we add the salt for 2 reasons, right? You have salt on your table. What's it for? So things taste good, right?
They want you to check that rice, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Woo!
It's not me. It was Oranut.
Oh, it's good. I think it's done.
Oranut's on top of it. So
Oh,
everybody
man.
check
All
your
right.
rice.
Dude, you want a job at Kripalu? You're in. Let me see what I got.
So what are you
Alright.
checking for there? Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is to see if it's done, right, man? Oh, here, check it out. So this is where I'm at. The water's pretty well absorbed, but what can happen sometimes, depending upon your burner, when you're doing small quantities, water can evaporate. You know when water boils, it turns to steam and it evaporates? Sometimes when you're doing small quantities, the water evaporates quicker than the grain can hold. So check your rice now. If there's still water in it, let it keep going. Mine went a little quick and I lost a little bit of, the water went, it's still a little bit undone. So I'm just going to add a touch more water to let it continue cooking. All right.
Excuse me.
Put it in, and I'll just put it right back on the stove top. All right.
If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat.
All right. So next up, we've got peppers. All right. So it's important, my friends, when you're working in a kitchen or cooking, to always just kind of clean as you go. All right. Right, Jazzy?
Yeah, and before you start in on this,
Go
with the stuff in the pot, just put a lid on it and let it go for like 2 to 3 minutes.
Exactly. And what we're doing here, there's different methods of cooking. This is called sweating. Not like sweating. Well, kind of like sweating. What it is, it's a low heat. And by putting the lid on top of this, what happens is, as it's cooking, the heat comes up and turns into moisture and it comes back down. And it helps quicken the cooking of the vegetables, but it softens the vegetables faster and it really renders their flavors. And the idea is all the onions right now are releasing their juices, and that's when all the flavor comes out. All right. So let's look at our peppers. Okay, I couldn't find a green pepper today. So guess what happens when you can't find a green pepper, my friends? You get an orange pepper. A pepper is a pepper. Okay. And when you're reading recipes, sometimes you go to the market and you get there and you're like, they don't have the pepper I need. That's when you got to do substitutions and stuff like that. So you don't have to follow them like to the T. All right. So peppers, they're really good for vitamin C, right? Vitamin C does what? Helps us feel good, keeps our immune systems up. All right. Peppers. We always think of orange juice, right, Jazzy, as vitamin C, but peppers are there as well. All right. Now, peppers, they have a tough skin on the outside. So I can't just go like that with my knife. I've got to be a little careful with it. All right. So I'm going to show you how I do a pepper. So we've got this end here and I saw through. And then I got this end here and I saw through. And then I've got this. You can see the center of it. Then I take my knife and I run down one side. I then open it and look at that. I popped out all the seeds and everything. Done. One shot. You can show that to your parents after you do this. All right. And then you've got these 2 little pieces here. So I take this piece out because Jazzy, want to eat this?
Yeah, sure.
No, we're not eating it. We're not eating a stem. We don't do that in my house. No waste in my house. We eat the stem. I'm kidding, guys. All right. So pepper, what do? We don't want to cut what side?
The skin part.
Skin side. Why not?
Because it's a tough skin.
And it does what?
Just kind of mushes.
It mushes, exactly. So like tomatoes and red peppers, when you go to cut them, always make sure that the flesh, not the skin side, is up. That way your knife can go through it nice and easy, all right? So here, I'm gonna do this guy. And it depends, you know, the cuts, do the best you can with the cuts. You know, when I worked in kitchens where the chefs would come around and measure your squares to see if they were perfect. And it's funny, now years later, I don't cook like that at all. I cook sloppy, and what we call that as adults, we call it rustic. All right? It's just a little easier to cook, all right? So we don't have to worry about the shapes and sizes. All right, so we got this guy going in. And chili, you know, you think about it, you know, it's a great way to use up scraps if you have onions and like half peppers lying around. It's a great way to kind of move those things forward. All right, I'm going to go in with these. So let's look at our onions. Go ahead and move that out of there. See, I'll give you a little more light on that. All right, so you see we've got a little translucent, we got a little bit of browning, no big deal. Now we're going to add our peppers. So, Jazzy, take away on that red pepper. So when you're making the soups and chilies and stuff like that, when we're making things in one pot, you know, you look at the instructions and you see a lot of instructions here. But after you practice, you start to break these recipes down differently, okay? So there's really only 3 steps, if you look at it, to making this. And we're doing the first step right now. The first step is cooking the vegetables. All right, that'll always be to be sweating or sauteing your vegetables. That's our first spot. All right. Nice, Jasmine. Nice. All right, I'm gonna check my rice again, Mary. All right, let's see.
So, Jeremy, what if they don't like peppers or they don't want to use peppers?
Yeah, you know, it's whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. What could you could do carrots instead of peppers. You could easily do carrots in there. You could do celery in there. I mean, really any vegetable that you do like would be in there. You know, I've done it with butternut squash before. So feel free. If you don't like peppers, you actually, from the chili powder, you kind of get that pepper essence anyway. But here, I'm going to tell you a little secret, okay, that I have to tell most adults that I teach. And I'm going to tell you at the age that you can carry with this the rest of your life, all right? When it comes to substitutions, if you don't like something in a recipe and you're like, oh, can I do this? Here's the rule. As long as you like it, it works. So whatever substitution you want to do, feel free to do it, try it, and if you like it, it works. There are no rules. There's no way you're saying, oh, you can't put carrots in there. No, you make your own chili, all right? It'll be your own style. And that's what cooking is. You know, if you read recipes, I look at recipes when I'm doing another chef's recipes, I look at them as guidelines. And the first time that I do them, I'll follow them exactly sometimes. And if I like them the second time, I go back and I do whatever I want. I start changing things and I make them my own. So feel free to do the same. Good job, Javi. Get that in there. So I'm going to show you the rice over here real quick, where we're at with this. All right. So rice is done. Check it real quick. Now, normally I don't double dip, but since I'm at home, I'm going to double dip, all right? So the rice is good. Check this out. Your rice should be nice and flat, right? Just take a little bit, kind of open it, take a little piece. If it's tender, let it sit for about 5 minutes, okay? And we're going to come back to it at the very end. Just shut it off, leave the lid on it, and it's all good. Jazzy's got our peppers. Are your houses starting to smell now? That's the best part, right? All right, there you go, Jazzy. So Jazzy's stirring up our chili right now. I'm going to turn down our heat a little bit. You can keep the lid off of the pan now because we're just going to cook these peppers out for a little bit. All right? Jazzy, clean up after yourself, Jazzy. Actually, Jazzy and I are the messiest cooks in the house, I think. I'll be honest. All right, what do we got next, Jazzy? So let's go zucchini, all right? What's the French word for zucchini? Does anybody speak French? Any French speakers in the house? Let's hear it. Unmute if you know.
Courgette?
Oh, oui, oui, mademoiselle. All right, courgette. And you know what's funny? When I was in culinary school, we had to memorize 700 French words in a week. You want to know, and we all got names. So it would help us remember. You want to know what my name was? All right, French speakers, see if you know what this is. My pronunciation is horrible. Oufs brouillés was my name. Do you know what that means? Oufs brouillés. I was called scrambled eggs. That was my name in that class for the week. So you can take it if you
Eggs was in there.
What's that?
The oops egg, yeah.
And it's funny, when I went to France, I could always read that on a menu, no problem. But like I can read French menus and stuff. But when I went over and I worked in London, it's interesting. Though they speak English, they'll use all the French terms. And the first time I went to a walk-in, they're like, get the courgette. And I was stuck in this walk-in going, what is a courgette? I couldn't remember. And then I finally remembered. The zucchini, okay? Give it a good wash beforehand, right? We always wash our stuff with just water. That's easy enough, a little scrub. Now the zucchini is a little different. The zucchini is going to be a little, it's got more water in it, so it can't cook long. If we let this cook the whole time, it's going to kind of slime out. All right, so we're going to add this a little later. But before we cook it, you've got our veggies cooking. Do your veggies look like this right now, guys? Let's see what you got. Give me the thumbs up if your chili looks like this. Let me know, Mary, because I can't see the whole group right now.
Not quite yet. We're getting there.
We're getting there? All right.
Yep.
You guys let me know. I'm going to show you how to cut the zucchini.
Well,
I think
that?
there's a lot of people that aren't cooking too, so I think.
Okay, that's really cool. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so zucchini, here we go. So I'm going to cut this while this is cooking. So I'll take this here. I'll take it here, right? And I'm going to dice this a little bit bigger. Why? Because it's going to cook really quick. And I don't want it. If it's too small, it's going to mush out. So I want these a little bit larger. And that's what we think about when we're doing recipes in kitchens, is we look at like, all right, what kind of vegetable is it? Like a mushroom, for instance. If you have a cup of mushrooms, when you cook them, you might only have like a quarter cup. So you have to do extra and kind of take that into consideration, all right? So you should be smelling your peppers if you're using peppers. You should be smelling your onions right now. Go ahead, Jazz, you do that last one. And we're going to add our spices next, all right? So as soon as you give me the thumbs up that we're ready to add spices, or if you're not cooking, just give us the thumbs up. I don't want to leave anybody in the dust. Corn. All right. So next up, we're going to add our spices. So we've got chili powder, we've got cumin, and we've got oregano. All right, which is normally obviously a fresh herb. It's dried for this. So like we're in the winter time now, right? And certain things are in season. A lot of herbs aren't in season, though you can still in our markets get them fresh. But oftentimes the dried form of herbs came around because people wanted to, you know, before refrigeration, thousands of years ago, like how do we make these things last through the winter? We would dry the herbs to do that. So we still dry them today, all right? Kripalu Kitchen, we use dried herbs in the wintertime. That's where we kind of shift to. And then in the summer, when the basil and everything's really coming, that's when we just start throwing herbs on everything, all right? So chili powder. Got your chili powder? We're going to add a tablespoon of chili powder, Jazzy. And how many teaspoons is that? It's right over here.
I ate pure chili powder before
How many, bud?
I ate pure chili powder before the Zoom meeting.
Ooh.
It
How's
was
that feel?
spicy. It was spicy, and I was coughing for 10 minutes.
Really? Yeah, I was going to say that's probably.
I can handle it now, but I can handle it.
So here we go. 1 tablespoon of chili powder. We're going to talk spices after we add this.
Actually, it's funny that you say that. One time, I was in my dad's office, and he had a bag of chili powder. And I put my nose to it, and I breathed in really deeply. Don't do that.
She learned her lesson very quickly that day. You never huff into a big pile of chili powder. So now we have a little cumin. And before you add the spices, give them a good smell.
Not a really strong smell though, because then they'll go in your
Just
nose.
give it a light smell. No, not the chili powder. I'm talking the cumin. What's the cumin smell like?
I smelled it deeply, and there's no chili powder smell.
Oh, really? What's the cumin smell like?
Nothing much.
Really? Give it a stir. Uh-oh, some of these spices have been around.
Yeah, it might be old spices.
So here,
I actually don't know what cumin smells like.
That's why I wanted to ask, because so for me, I've always liked the smell of cumin, and I want you know what's happened to me. They say
I can smell it well.
What does it smell like?
Kind of like I can't describe it.
Come on, what's your first thought?
A mix between pasta and cayenne pepper.
Interesting. I was gonna go with like body odor because it smells like wet socks to me right now. And it's funny, cumin, they say that as you get older, your smells change and tastes change. Because I find foods that I hated as a kid, all of a sudden I liked when I was older. No reason why, they just kind of change. But all of a sudden, for me, the smell of cumin has changed over the years. And people always used to say to me, students would come to the class, they'd like, it smells like sweaty socks or something. And I was like, I don't get it. All of a sudden, I get that now. All right.
I smell that.
I figured it out. I figured out what it smells like.
What does it smell?
What's it smell like, Kabir?
It smells like an Indian food called pani puri.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Like
You're in there. Well, that cumin is a huge staple in Indian cuisine, so you nailed it, bud.
1 tablespoon.
1.5 of these. Yeah. So let's talk about spices. Okay, so spices, right? Spices are basically come from different bushes, different bark from a tree, things like that. So like chili powder obviously comes from dried chilies that are ground, okay? Spices, right, being dry, we oftentimes think that they last forever, all right? I bet you there's spices that you have seen since you were little kids that are the same spices that are still in your cabinet. How many can, like, is there a thing of, I remember going, yeah, exactly, all right? I remember going to my mom's house when I learned what I'm about to tell you. This was 10 years ago. I was maybe in my 30s, okay? And I went in there, and she had a jar. Do you know what cloves look like? Or nutmeg, the big balls? It was in a glass jar with this little grater. And when I looked at them, all of a sudden I got this memory of being 3 years old, 4 years old, sitting on the floor playing with those things. And I looked at my mom and I said, are these the same ones? She's like, yes. And I'm like, oh gosh, you know? So here's the deal with spices. Spices get old after a while. They can only last up to 6 months in your cupboard, okay? You'll start losing flavor, but then there's also health benefits that we get from it, okay? Whole spices that are like seeds and stuff will go like 10 months or something like that, all right? So any of those spices that are old, you got to get out of there. But there's a way around it. Even when you buy them, you don't know how long they've been around, okay? So if you look at what we're doing here, we've added these spices, and there's the oil in there, and what we've done is this is a term, we've bloomed the spices. We've brought them back to life. So that's the second step. The first step is cutting all the vegetables. The second step is getting all of the spices to bloom. And that usually takes 2 to 3 minutes. And if your pan should, adjust your heat, high or low. If you start to see it getting too brown, turn it down. But what happens is those spices mix in with the juices from the other vegetables and they caramelize, and that's when the flavors really come together. So go ahead and do some garlic, Jazzy, while we're standing. But these two steps. Hold on.
Jeremy, can you just review what spices are in there now?
So I've got 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1.5 teaspoons of dried oregano, and 3/4 teaspoon of cumin. Okay. And again, chili, sometimes I've added cinnamon to my chili before. I mean, these are the base spices. But if you wanted to make this again and play with it, and you wanted to add cinnamon, you would add that cinnamon now. Or if you wanted that heat, you'd add a little cayenne pepper. Or sometimes what they'll do is, like we use red peppers, you would use like a jalapeno. Or anybody ever heard of a ghost pepper?
Ooh.
Ghost peppers. They are the hottest pepper in the world.
Actually, I'm
Okay,
pretty
that
sure
was-
it's a hotter one.
Really? What's the hotter one?
I don't know what it's called, but I heard something about them finding a hotter one.
Really? I remember when I was working in London, the chef came to me. I was a young cook, and I was just learning how to do this stuff. And he said, here, we're going to do these peppers. And I said, okay. And I grabbed one and went to cut it. And he goes, no, man. He goes, put these gloves on first. So I put on like doctor's gloves. And I was like, I'm not a doctor, but okay. As I was cutting these peppers, they were so hot. My fingertips started getting cold through the glove from the heat that was hitting the glove on the outside. That's how hot these things were. So when you're handling hot things, stuff like that, always important anytime in the kitchen to always wash your hands. But if you handle spices or jalapenos or you get a little chili powder hands, get to your sink and wash your hands. Don't do what I did and rub my eyes once and it was all over from that. All right.
They want to know if you've ever eaten a ghost pepper, Jeremy.
No, I've had like a little tiny piece just to like get like a, but that's as far as I know. I know guys, I knew they would like have these competitions of who could, I'm sorry, I'm good.
What is the name? It's like the SCOTUS scale or something. There's a name for it too.
Yeah, there's a name for how they rate them. All right.
It's called the Scoville Heat Scale.
There you
I
go.
love this guy. I like this kid.
You guys are great.
Dude, he's good. He's all
It's a
over.
smart
He's like
group
chef
here
in
today.
training in there. All right, we gotta get our garlic in here. So Jazzy's doing some garlic. I'm gonna show Jazzy a quick trick. So we've got to peel this.
Oh, and
How
What you
much
can do with
garlic
your
do we
knife,
need?
just go, are you gonna do it? All right, watch Jazzy. Watch
Excuse
Jazzy.
me.
Okay, if you've got questions, put them in the chat.
Wouldn't
Answer
answer.
them for you. Yep, it's 4 cloves of garlic. So just make sure you pop those into the chat so that we can answer them for you.
All right, I'm gonna switch cameras so you can watch Jazzy cut this. So garlic, right? Go ahead, Jazzy. So Jazzy, we got a whole clove here. Jazzy's gonna smash it with all of her aggression, right? And then what she's doing is she's gonna chop it from here. So garlic, you oftentimes see food. Now, why did I wait to add this garlic? Does anybody have an idea why I haven't added the garlic yet?
Anybody put that in the chat? Anybody have an idea? Now they're stumped there,
All
Jeremy.
right, so here it is. You see it? Watch how small Jasmine's going to cut this. Okay, this is a good trick. Always remember this: as big as your food is cut, is as quickly as it's going to cook. All right. So if you're in a hurry, you can cut things smaller. But like garlic, you can't put big chunks in there. If I put this little bit of garlic in there with those peppers, guess what would have happened? The garlic would have burned by the time the peppers were cooked. So garlic, things like this that are cut smaller, are always added right at the very end before you start adding your liquid and things like that. So that's what we're going to do here. So
We're gonna do a little shout out there to Katerina. She did know that.
Ooh, Katerina.
Ooh, go Katerina.
All right, let's get it in here, Jazzy. So bring that right up. Jazzy, going to show you a little trick. Watch this. Woo, you scoop it up on the knife. Look, that's how Jazzy cut it. Smell it? You guys smell it? Smell it? All right. So here's the other little trick. And again, you guys are getting this young. Most adults don't even know this stuff. How long do you cook garlic?
2 minutes
But till you what?
until you smell it.
Oh, Jazz, give them a chance. Till you smell it. Till you smell it. Jazz, you got to give them a shot. All right. If you find that your pan's getting a little dry, you can add a little oil. Good to go. Done. All right. Next stop, beans. Beans, good for your heart. All right. Hey, Jasmine, don't finish that line. All right. All right. So we can smell our garlic. Now we're going to add our beans. So we've got some kidney beans. Okay. Why do they call them kidney beans? Because they look like our kidneys, apparently, right? Is that what we call them, that, Mary?
Yep.
All
Kidneys that shape.
Exactly. Do you know that here next time? Does everybody know what a walnut looks like? Right? So walnuts are really good. They have things called omega-3s that are good for your brain, good for brain health. And one of my chef friends pointed out one day that walnuts, if you look at them, look like brains. And I was like, wouldn't it be awesome if every food that was good for you looked like what it was good for? Like something like cauliflower shaped like an ear or something. I don't know. That'd be weird. All right. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. I could go somewhere with that. All right. So let's add our beans. We're going to add our black beans. All right.
So as soon as they smell that garlic, they want to add those beans,
Add
right,
those
Jeremy?
beans. All right. We're going to add our zucchini now too. Now, when you're adding these beans, you're going to see some, you're going to add some moisture in there, especially when we add the tomatoes. And what you want to do is using your wooden spoon, scrape up any of the caramelization. And this, I'm going to give you a French term. All right. When we get that kind of brownness on the bottom, you ever make gravy when you see your parents like roast a chicken or they make gravy for Thanksgiving or something like that? That's what they're doing. After you roast a chicken, there's all this juice left in the pan that you can make a sauce of. Well, the same thing happens with these soups. All that stuff on the bottom we want. So we'll just kind of give it a good stir. So work your magic, Jazzy.
What's the term?
All right.
What's the name of that there, Jeremy?
What's that?
That stuff on the bottom.
The fond. Not the, well, these kids are too young. Not the fonds.
They speak French.
Sorry, we were muted, but we said fond.
Ooh, all right, yeah. He's like, I'm dry. We had that one for 500 fond. You guys are great. All right, so let's add in zucchini. All right, we're gonna get that in now. All right, and now what we can do is we can start turning our flames up to like a medium high. We're gonna start simmering this. All right. All right, so we'll turn that up. We're gonna cook for about 3 minutes to cook that zucchini out. All right, but let's talk about beans. All right, so beans, right? There's that rhyme, right? So beans then tend to make us gassy, correct? Right? You know, we get the toots afterwards, right? So there's some ways to
I put the bean song. I put the bean song in the chat.
Where is it? I want to see it.
It's
Where
in the
is it?
chat.
Oh, hold on, I can't see the chat. I gotta switch camera. Oh wait, I gotta stop share. Did he really put it in there?
Yeah, it's up there.
Oh, I appreciate that. All right, cool. I'm glad some things don't change in this world. It's awesome.
Beans,
All right.
beans, the more you eat, the more
So
you
beans, right? They make us gassy. So there's ways that we contribute. So like when you look at beans, canned beans, and I didn't put it in the recipe, but one of the things we do at Kripalu, when beans are dry, we have to cook them in water. And you can just cook them in straight water. But one of the things that we can do is use seaweed in them, called kombu seaweed. It's these giant sheets, okay? And what the seaweed does, we take a little piece and we cook it in the beans. And what it does, it has it basically imparts iodine, which is good for us on there, but it helps break down these things called saccharides in the beans that give us that gas. So as you cook them, it kind of pulls that stuff out, okay? There's a few beans on the market, like canned beans are okay. There's one brand, Eden Organic, that they actually cook it just like Kripalu does, so that's the one where I kind of go. Now beans, what are they good for? They're great protein sources. A lot of people are vegetarians or vegans that aren't eating animals for protein. Protein is something that, you know, when you eat rice, your body can store the nutrients from the rice. When you eat protein, your body doesn't store it, okay? So you kind of always have to have it. So people that aren't eating animal products need protein sources. Beans are an excellent source. Beans also are a great source of fiber, right? Which keeps our digestive systems rolling, keeps all the good bugs in our bodies, right? It also allows us to feel full. Okay, so you look at the cultures where rice and beans are there, they're really nutritious and they're filling at the same time, and they're really easy to cook. They're dry, you can keep them in your cupboard. What do you got there, Harper? You waving your hand? You ready? She looks like she's waving. All right, so let's up. So we've got this in here now. Next up, we've got our beans. We're going to add our corn, okay? So this time of year, we're going frozen corn. Anybody got any fresh corn in their backyard right now? No. All right, so we're going frozen. This is when frozen's okay. And frozen foods are a great way to eat things a little bit out of season or to hold them forward. Now, years ago, frozen foods, not so much. But now when they freeze foods, when they harvest them, they're frozen like at their peak, right when they taste their best and their nutrients are at their most. They're frozen and then they're brought to us. And that kind of suspends that so we get those benefits almost as if we're eating fresh, okay? How you doing, Jazzy? What do we got going on here?
We are mixing up the corn into.
Jazzy's like, she's like, he always makes me do all the work. All right, look at that. Nice, Jazzy. All right. So my next trick, all right? No, I always like joking with this. Do you guys ever see one of these? This is what I always joke about. This is called a can opener. No, I'm kidding. We all know what this is, right? All right. So tomatoes. You're like, Jeremy, why are you using? Go ahead, Jazzy. Why are you using canned tomatoes today? That's so funny. You should ask, guys. All right. So tomatoes will grow what in the summertime? Correct. Okay. So there aren't any good tomatoes. Now you can go to the market and you can find fresh tomatoes. But you know, tomatoes in the summer, they're really juicy and sweet. The ones that you're going to get in the market right now probably took a plane to get to that market, and it'll never ripen because it's just not the season. So what we do at Kripalu this time of year, we switch out to all organic canned products. You're better off doing that than using tomatoes that aren't really going to give you the flavor. And they also, when you're buying tomatoes out of season, they usually are more expensive as well. Okay, so this is a more economical way, but also a better way, better flavor way to do this. So we're going to go right into the tomatoes and the juice. Yep, all of it in. So that juice is going to provide the moisture that we want in the chili. We don't want our chili to be too soupy, but we don't want it to be too thick. So give that a stir in, Jazzy. All right. Yeah, I'll hold it. Yeah, I'll hold it while you're stirring. So what Jazzy's doing right now There's still a little caramelization on the bottom. As she's adding that juice in there, that juice is going to start lifting it from the bottom of the pan, okay? And that's a little trick, and I'm going to throw this at you. If any of your cook adventures, or if you see your parents burn a pan, okay? After it's burned, get all the food out of it. Pour some water back into it and put it on the stovetop. Put it on like low, and what it does is it simmers all the stuff that got cooked on the bottom, and then you just take a flat spatula or a spoon, and it pulls right up, and then you don't have to scrub so hard, all right? That's one of the tricks we do in the kitchen sometimes, all right? So next step, we've got everything in there. We've got to add a little bit of our cilantro next. So let's talk herbs. Okay, so once your chili comes up to a simmer, reduce it down to a medium, okay, to let it cook out.
What does that mean to a simmer? How do they know it's at a simmer?
So simmer is like light bubbles. You should start seeing it. Just boiling is like, when you're making pasta. Simmering should just be like this, like boop, 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 not too fast. A little lower than this one, yeah. All right, because the simmering allows it to cook. If we boil this too hard, what it's going to do, all that delicate zucchini and vegetables, it's going to break it down and it's just going to fall apart. So we want that light simmer to bring the flavors together. All right. So cilantro. Do you like cilantro, Jazzy?
No, not really.
She doesn't know.
Yes, Jasmine.
Yeah, I know. How many people don't like
with you,
cilantro? I like cilantro. I like cilantro. All right, I want to see the chat. Who doesn't like cilantro? No,
Yeah, we
do.
seem to
Clara,
have a
I
whole
love
bunch
you,
of
Clara,
cilantro
Michigan.
lovers.
Yeah, either you like it or you don't. Oh, you like it? I like this crew.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Is there anybody that doesn't? Is anybody
Oh, look
that
at
doesn't like
Shannon's
it?
trying it for her first time.
So I meet a lot of adults that don't like it. Like I'll have it on the menus at Kripalu, and I had someone once. They're like, "You should put a warning label on menus that have cilantro," and I'm like, "Oh, it's not dangerous or anything. You just don't
cool.
like it."
Here's
So
some people
Sophia
that-
doesn't like it. I'm with you. It's okay, Sophia.
Has
So here's the
everybody
deal.
tried it?
Right? Sophia,
Has
what is
everybody
it?
tried it?
What's that?
Maybe try a little piece. Has everybody tried it?
Try a little bit. Smell it first.
That's the cool thing with herbs. You can just, they're like plants. You can just pick up and eat.
Here's another little trick. Next time you get like rosemary or thyme, go like this. Take it and just always switch the camera out so you can see. If you go like this, take it in your hand, like if you have rosemary or any of the herbs, just take your hand. You can actually do this when you go, if you're outside and there's evergreen trees right now in the winter. One of the outdoor guides at Kripalu taught me this because I was like, oh, we do this with herbs, but you could do it with evergreen trees. You go like this. Just kind of take your hand, rub the herb in your palm, and it activates the oils. And then just take your hand like this and smell, and it starts to come out. If you go outside and you do that with a pine tree, it is the most relaxed. Oh, it just smells so good. It's very calming. But that's where all the oils come out. And then just take a little piece in your mouth, try it and see what you think. But herbs, okay? You pointed this out the other day. Was it Dessa? The misting of the herbs at the market. So I have another, Jasmine's little sister Dessa is like 6, and we were walking through the market the other day. And you guys know in the market where there's all the herbs, and when you're walking by, all of a sudden it's like, tss, and all the mist comes out, right? They do all that mist. The reason why they do the mist, I always thought it was to make the herbs last longer. But actually, apparently the mist makes people think that the herbs look nicer. It's like some sort of thing in our minds when we see the mist. Yeah, and Dessa says, why do they mist? And I was like, they do it to make, because it is, you see the mist and you're like, it just thinks fresh. But I'm going to tell you something, that mist is the worst thing that you can do to herbs, especially something like cilantro. There are soft herbs and there are hard herbs. All right, soft herbs would be cilantro, parsley, basil, right? What else? Chervil, chives, right? Hard herbs would be like rosemary, thyme, sage, things like that, a little firmer, okay? These guys, especially when they get wet, that moisture gets in there, they just start rotting that much faster. So this is what I do at the store when I go in. I go in and I pull the herbs from the back because they're, behind, because they're not going to be as wet, okay? And then when I get them home, I do it like a bouquet of flowers, okay? You can do this in your fridge. Trim off the bottom and plop them right into your fridge. And then you can take a little bag or cloth and put around it. These will last up to 7 to 9 days. You just change the water periodically. Think about it as like your bonsai plant or any plant that you might have. You care for it, trim the leaves, it grows back, it'll last much longer, okay? When you go to use it, you have to wash it. So I'm going to show you how I wash things, okay? So I'm going to do this whole bunch, okay? So what I do is I take the whole bunch, I kind of loosen it a little bit, right? And I plop it right in. Let me change screens for you, okay? And so what I do is I kind of just do this to it. Keeping them together, I kind of plunge. You guys all know what gravity is, right? What does gravity do? Keeps us here, keeps our feet on the ground, right? Well, gravity right now is taking all the sand and all the dirt, you know, what there is in this, and it's just falling to the bottom of this bowl, all right? So this way I don't have to like take it all apart, you know, I don't have to run stuff over it. I'm letting gravity do the job here. Well, maybe I'm doing a little plunging, but if you have to, you can just leave it like that while you're doing other things. And then when the water's really, you know, if you see it, it's like, this is pretty clean. It's not that dirty. But if it's really dirty, all you have to do is change out the water, put clean water back into it again, and do it again. And you just do it until the water is clean. And then you know you're covered. Okay? Now the next thing, remember I said that moisture was not our friend when it comes to herbs, especially the soft ones? Now we need to dry them. So there's 2 ways you can dry them. I need everybody paying attention right now. Can you looking at the screen? You ready? This is the first way you can dry them. You just flick them at Jasmine. No, I'm just kidding. Right? No, I'm kidding. What you want to do, flick them at someone lovingly. This is how we play in the kitchen. I'm going to use a salad spinner. Anybody have a salad spinner? All right, so this is another cool. I'm not a big kitchen gadget guy, but I like this thing. All right, so check it out. It's a little net. You plop the herbs in there. Oh, I'm going to leave that right on there. Okay? And then I'm going to take this here. I'm going to put the lid back down. Watch. This is the best part. Jasmine's little sister found this over the summer and was taking crayons and little Lego figures and doing this to it. She's like, they're in a tornado! Because if you look, it's spinning right now. Right? And that spinning, what's that called, Mary? What is that force called? Centrifugal force? Centrifugal force is pulling the water out to the side, and then the gravity's pulling it down to the bottom of the barrel. All right? Now check it out. Ah, dried herbs. Perfect. Okay? Now, certain herbs, right? Which ones? Rosemary, right?
Hard
and
herb.
What's the other hard herb, Jazz? Thyme, right? They have really thick stems, right? So you have to plop the leaves off of them. You got to plop the leaves off of them, okay? These guys, parsley and cilantro is awesome because you can use the stem. You don't have to worry about it, all right? So this is how I cut them. How much do I need here? I need a couple of tablespoons, quarter cup, something like that. Mary wants, it's a half cup. It's for Mary. I'm going to give her a cup because she likes it so much. No, I'm kidding, all right? So
Lucky
bunch
me.
it up like this.
It's just a half a bunch for the recipe.
All right, so take it here. Yep, go ahead, Jazzy. So I cut it nice and fine on there. We're not going to do the whole thing. And I'm going to show them how to restore it.
And notice what else was what's going on with that that tie there at the end of the bunch. That
Yeah, so I'm
Jasmine's
keeping
got.
that tie in there.
Did you see that, Jasmine? Can you show them that? The little
Yep, show 'em
twister
the
tie on there?
So she's got the tie on there. That's
Because it
all we
keeps it
need.
together.
So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go right back into my jar. Whoop. I'll put my glass over it, and I go right back into my fridge. And it'll keep it as long as possible, all right? So fresh herbs and stuff like that, they're for flavor, but they also like with this one, chili is very tomatoey. It's kind of heavy. All that just tasted that cilantro. What it's going to do is it's going to kind of bring the flavors. It's going to brighten up the dish and making it a little bit lighter. There are certain things that do that in cooking, like lemon. You know, sometimes I'll get a dish. You ever get a dish that's just kind of like you taste food or a soup and you're like, it's missing something, right? A lot of times people want to just keep adding salt and salt and salt. And then eventually it's just really salty and still missing something. So what we do at Kripalu is when we get to the seasoning, we start adding salt and some sort of acidity. And acidity has an effect where it basically brings the flavors to the top on your palate, right? All your taste buds on your tongue really can perceive those flavors and it really pulls them out, all right?
So what are acidic flavors, Jeremy? How do we know something is
acidic? So a tomato would be acidic,
Lemon.
all right? What else is acidic?
Lemon, lime,
Lime, orange juice is not as acidic, but it's still acid.
grapefruit,
Grapefruit, white wine vinegar. All your vinegars are acid. Certain
apple
fruits.
cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar. Exactly. Good girl, Jazzy. I like that.
Nice job, you guys.
Yeah,
Look at that
Jazzy, I
team.
love that. Yeah,
Go
yeah.
team.
All right, so we've got our cilantro. Do we add the cilantro in here? I can't.
No, it's just a garnish.
Yep. All right, we've got our tomatoes and corn. We're good to go. All right, so we're going to work on our garnishes here. Jazz, you want to grab our cheese? We have it in the fridge, I believe. And we're going to do avocados next. I love
So
these.
just double check everything on your recipe, all the way up to where it says sea salt, should all be in the pot. So the corn, the tomatoes, the black beans, the kidney beans, zucchini, garlic, cumin, oregano, chili powder, peppers,
Should be
onions.
all good to go. Give me thumbs up. Are you guys there or what?
Yeah, Layla's
Nice.
got it.
It's a hip crowd.
I'll tell you, they're on top of it.
Can you clean celery like that?
Lenny,
Yes, you
Jody,
could.
yep, we've got
Yep.
you. Shannon,
Nice,
Harper.
Jody.
nice job, you guys.
Nice. All right, Sophia McCormick's killing it. I can see it. All
Awesome.
right. So next up, so we have our cheese for our garni. That's French for garnish. Just it's like some of you already knew that probably. Excellent. All right. So actually, I'm going to tell you a little story real quick. Speaking of French, okay. So we use corn in that, and I want to bring this up. When I was a young kid, and I went to work in this, it was called the Relais Chateau, a really fancy hotel. It was an old mansion that they built. And it was in America, in the Northeast. But what they would do is they would bring in all French waiters, like professional waiters and masters of wine and chefs. I was like the only American chef. And the first day I worked, because I was just learning how to cook, I was the guy that prepped everything. And they were like, you get to make the staff meal. What happens in kitchens is one cook will make the food for all the people that are working, and then they sit down before service when we open the restaurant to eat. So they gave me all the ingredients, and one of the things was corn on the cob. So I made corn on the cob, I steamed it, I made some meat and other things, and I laid it out for all the waiters. And I can't speak French, I know culinary French. And so all these French waiters were sitting there, and I heard them all, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And all I heard was this. They looked at the corn, and this is how I heard it. All I heard was blah, 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 moo, blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him, and I was like, and then I realized one of the guys, I was like, why did you make the cow sound? He was like, because corn is the food of the cows. And I was like, what? And then I realized a lot of French people don't eat corn on the cob. It's very much it's an American thing. You go over there, they look at corn as something you would feed in animals. And then I started looking through French cookbooks. I can't find corn anywhere. So it's interesting, when we eat the way we eat, even the way you eat in your home, you can go 50 miles and people are eating differently. You go 3,000 and it keeps changing, and you'll see similarities, but there's always these weird little differences. Is there anything that you guys recognize like that? Anything? All right, avocado. Who likes avocados? Yes, that's what I'm talking. I call them green gold, right? So we talk about fats, right? Fats, like the oil we use is a fat, avocados are fat. Fats like this are really, really good for you, all right? We actually make a dessert with these at Kripalu. We make a chocolate avocado mousse. Does that sound good to anybody? Oh, yeah. Maybe we'll make that one week. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. It's kind of here. All right? So avocados. Can anyone tell me a different name for an avocado? Or do you have a name at your house that you call an avocado?
In Spanish, we call them aguacates.
Yes.
Ah, nice, Layla. Thank you.
Gracias.
And the black ones are called has.
Haas, I love your style, dude. What you got there, Derek?
Shabakadu.
Ooh. So there's another name for it. It's called the alligator pear, is what someone once told me. All right? And if you look at it, we've got let me switch cameras for you. If you look at it, it's got the skin. It almost looks at it like an alligator skin, right? But when the person told me this, guess what I heard them say? I thought they said alligator tear. And doesn't it look like a tear when you think about it? So I like to call them alligator tears. All right, so that's where we're going. So how do you tell if one of these is ripe, Jazz?
You kind of like squeeze them, and you want them to be firm because you don't want them to be like really mushy, but they give a little under your fingers pressure.
Don't unmute it.
Right.
And that's how you know.
And sometimes they can be, really green and still soft, okay? But I'm going to show you something else here, all right? So you want to know if they're soft, and I'm going to show you guys this. You see on mine, there's this little nub here, right? When you're at the market, what you can do, I don't know, this is one of those things, you look at it, you go like this, the parents are like, no, parents will like this. You look into it. If it's really, really black inside, you put it back in and you put it down and you grab the next one and no, I'm just kidding, you check that one. What you want to do is you should be able to look in here and you should see the inside of it and it should be a little bit of green. And if you see that green, you know that it's not going to be really dark in the center, okay? But there's the giant pit in it. So I'm going to show you how I cut it. So I go right down to here, like this, and then I spin it right around, like so, okay? And then with this guy, I pop this out. Ooh, this one's going to be hairy, all right? We slice, like so. I got me a small rectangular plate from up there. I'm going to show you how to slice here. All right? And then we'll take a spoon. So what I did, yeah, perfect. So I slice this lengthwise, and now I take a spoon, right? And I scoop right around it, like so. And I go right through it, and then I've got the whole thing right here, and it's all sliced and ready to go for me. All right? This pit just broke on me. That never happens. All right? So we take the pit. Actually, those pits, you want to know something funny? So I worked with a nutritionist, okay? And someone said, it was like, people, you can actually grow an avocado from this. There's this whole thing where you can put toothpicks in it, put it in water. So many kitchens I've worked in, they've tried to do it. We end up throwing out dirty avocado pit water later. I know one person in California that has actually grown one. But it's funny, like they don't, when we were composting is when you take food waste to the farm and then they just let it break down and then that goes into feeding their gardens. They didn't want these pits in there because they would get into the compost, right? And then I was talking to a nutritionist, and this is what he told me. Someone said you can eat them, and I was like, there's no way. And he's like, look, he goes, I read a thing once where they found the fossils of this dinosaur. And in the gullet, they found these things which they think were basically the ancestors of avocados, the pits in this dinosaur's gullet. And I'm pretty sure if a T-Rex can't break this thing down, I don't think we're going to break it down, all right? And then I had a person in one of my classes, a grown-up, tell me that she goes, no, I throw them outside and my squirrels eat them. And I'm like, there's no way a squirrel is eating that pit. And she was like, no.
I don't know.
Sure.
I'm
pretty
kind of
sure they're
believe
just
that.
gathering them and they're laughing on the side.
I don't know.
Whole
There's
tree full of them.
squirrels are pretty wily. I can see that.
Another little trick, if you want to mash, say you're making guacamole, or you just want to break down one avocado, you take your fork in like this and kind of mash it within it, like so, right? You get it like halfway there, and then you can kind of take your spoon, and then you just scoop it out, and you've got already like kind of a puree there, all right? Skins over here. All right, so let's taste our chili. Let's see what we got going on here. So we haven't added any salt yet, right? Got a little salt. So you should have a little cheese grated. You got a little avocado or whatever, cheese, avocado, sour cream, whatever you're enjoying for your thing. So let's taste this, Jess. What's it taste like?
Pretty good. Could use some salt.
It needs salt, okay? So what I want to do, we added the 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So here's another little, and some of the adults have heard me say this a million times. And again, I'm so glad I get to say this to kids at such a young age. Always remember what I'm about to tell you with cooking, okay? When you get to the end of the recipe or any recipe and you're tasting it, and you're like, I think it needs more of this, or it needs more of that. All right, so for instance, I say, it needs more heat in there. It needs more cayenne pepper. I think I should put a teaspoon in. Oh, that'd be way too much. But better, what I should do, anything you think, go less, okay? Go less than what you think. Because here's the thing. You can always add more to your cooking, but you can never take it away, okay? It's kind of like words too. Once you say it, it's out there. You can't take it back. Same with cooking. You get your stuff in there, can't take it back. So always use caution, all right? So we're gonna add our salt. So we're gonna start adding this in increments. So let's do should I do a quarter teaspoon?
Yeah.
Jazzy's gonna be my taste tester. Sprinkle, go. I'm still gonna taste though. All right, what do we got? Getting there. We got our cilantro. So the cilantro can either be added, all of it to it, or put on the side, however you want to do it. I like to go pretty heavy with it.
What about your rice, Jeremy?
It's all done. It's resting.
People are concerned about the rice. So.
Oh, that's okay. So if you've got your rice, we're seasoning our chili. I know. They're concerned about my rice? Aw.
Just rice in general.
Rice in general. So I'm going to tell you something else, all right? So we're going to do rice with this. And a lot of times, there's something like this rice has no salt in it. And you know what? I'm going to keep it that way, okay? Why? Because I'm going to pour my chili over the rice, all right? And that chili flavor is going to absorb in there. So there's no need to add salt to this. Now, if I was going to eat it separately from my chili, if that's your intention, you may want to add a little olive oil to it and salt to kind of season it. But as it sits, what you're going to do now with that rice is basically take your fork and kind of fluff it. And the reason why we waited to do this is because rice does this. As it's cooking, it expands. And when it finishes, after it absorbs all that water, it's still open, okay? If I go in there and start stirring, what's it going to do, Jazzy?
It's just going to get really
Thick and mushy. It's going to start creaming out. You won't be able to see the grains. So by letting it rest, the grains settle down into themselves. And then when you go in with that fork, you get nice separate grains and everything's cooked evenly. All right? How is it tasting? Should we add more salt?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Watching Jazzy. I'm watching Jazzy. Actually, we did it a few days ago. I cooked something at home, and Jazz didn't know that I salted it already. And she came back, and she's like, oh, I salted that for you. I'm like, oh, it was salty. It was salty. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad. But you know what you can do if you over salt something in a chili? Cut a couple of slices of potato and just simmer it longer. The potato will pull that salt flavor out of the chili. All right, what do we got, Jazz? How's it taste? I think we're good. We're good. So we went a little less on the salt. It's up to you. All right, let me see what we got. So you guys take a look at where we're at. So it's still a little wet, a little juicy. You know, I'm going to show you another little trick on the side. Where's this? Did I bring up that immersion blender? So one of the things you can do with chili and stuff like that, most of the time we think of chili as something that cooks for a long time, right? You guys all heard of crock pots? Well, we don't want a crock pot. We want to be able to, crock pots go a long time so all the flavor can come together, okay? Something like this, we want to eat it right now, so you can grab a whisk. Oh, here it is. I've got a potato masher. What I can do, I'm just going to use this guy. I can go right in here, and I can just kind of break up just a little, in one little area, just kind of work this. And what it's going to do is it's going to mash some of those beans. It's going to mash some of those tomatoes. It's almost like pureeing it. And what it's going to do is it's going to kind of make up for the fact that we're not going to cook this for a long time. So I always tell people, like, you know, like if you're making salsas taste great. You know, raw tomatoes, I think they taste great the next day. But if you want to eat it right away, take a little of that salsa and like put it in a blender and puree it and put it back in. You'll still have the chunkiness, but then it's going to taste like it's been sitting for like 12 hours or something like that. It's pretty awesome. All right.
Plus, you get to use a potato masher. That's always fun.
That works. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
You get to use it for some time other than Thanksgiving.
I use it for millet, Mary. I always
Oh, of course, my favorite. We know that.
My millet. Mary loves millet. All right, so let's, what'd you say,
What's that,
Mary?
Layla?
We use the potato masher for mashed beans.
Yes, that's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Good idea.
You can hang at my house anytime. That's what we do too. So we're gonna show you guys. So Jazz is gonna plate this up. So again, I'm gonna point something else out. When you're ever making a recipe, like I consider this a one pot meal, you know, aside from the rice. You got a full meal in here. If you like a recipe and you want to plan ahead, do this recipe, times it by 2. Take out what you want to eat right away and take the rest to freeze it. And then later on, you can pull it out when you eat it. And every time you make something in a pot, if you double the recipe and freeze some, it can save you time. You know, those days that are really busy, your parents get home late for work, you're doing school. Oh, we've got this in the freezer. We can pull it out in the morning and at night we can eat it. So that's one way to kind of make things more efficient in your homes. We're going to leave that right there, Jazzy. So we're going to do a little cheese. Jazzy, you're going to do your sour cream, Mark.
So where's the rice there, Jeremy?
Oh, Jazzy went right for it. Jazzy did her own presentation. So I'm gonna do rice.
There it is.
She's dissing me on the rice, that's why.
So it's your choice. Some people don't like rice, or some people would rather do it just with the.
Yeah, some people go back and forth with it. I like to mix it. I don't know. Like some purists are like, you don't do rice with chili. I went to a chili fest. I've been to a few chili fests, and I love going to them because you hear all the different rules. Everyone has their, like, what makes it chili. Now, check out what Jazzy's going to do. A little sour cream on there, Jazzy. Ooh, Jazzy. So Jazzy took a bag, loaded it with sour cream, and cut the corner, and she's turned it into a pastry bag. There you go.
Nice. Look at that.
All right. And then you could have, if you have any little bit of cilantro left over, you can use that. All right, so we'll put some cheese over here. And then
Katie recognized the Buddha bowls.
Yeah, easy, Katie. Katie, how many do you have at home? That's what I asked. It's funny. A little avocado. There you go. And I'll do the here. On this one, I'll do the avocado right on the rice. That's enough. Perfect. That's my style, Jazz. I got all chefy on Jazzy for a second. All right, and then I'll do a little. I got a little bit of cilantro left over. Boom, right on there. Nice. Looks good. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing, and I want to see your chili. Anybody that's made chilies, pull them
let's
up
see
to the
those
window.
plates, everybody.
I want to get some pictures in here. I want to see what you guys got. Nice, Clara. Nailed it. You guys nailed it. That's awesome. Here, I'm going to go to the next one. I wish I could see you all at once. Oh, what you got? Nice. Derek and Bobby, that looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I was
you guys
gonna
did the
say.
skillet. That's awesome.
That's pretty amazing there, Derek and Bobby. That's a beautiful one.
Looking great, guys. Nice. Oh, you got it all panned up and ready to go. Sweet.
The Singh
Dinner's
family's
ready.
got it going on. Look at that. Sure, yeah. Beautiful.
Wow, Harper, that looks awesome.
Look at
Nice.
Arnav's down there. Nice slices on that avocado.
Dude, enough. That is a
This is like, we have some artists here.
Dude, I love it. You guys are amazing. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a little piece of little advice, okay? I didn't start cooking until I was 18 years old. I could microwave things. That's what I did. I started working in a restaurant when I was 14. And I had no offense to my parents when they hear this, but I ate very plain food. We ate your typical canned food. There was nothing healthy. And I worked at this restaurant, and I'll never forget the first time I had a curry with a pompadon and the vegetable biryani and like these flavors. And all of a sudden I was trying goat cheese and all these different things. And it just changed everything for me. And it's partially why I got into it. But the cooking part, you know, you're all really young. There are so many people, especially in the United States, that get older that don't know how to cook, And you know what? That's like I tell Jasmine and her brother and sister, like, that's the one skill, that's the one thing that you can take with you wherever you go, you know, whether you can be cooking for yourself, you can end up working somewhere, you're in college, you work part-time cooking for other people, something like that. But like, it's something, if you enjoy it now, keep doing it. I've watched Jasmine go from like, she's now taking recipes. She really likes to bake, right? Jasmine makes up her own recipes at this point. She's really cranking it along. And for me, it's not only something that if she ever wanted to go and work and do this, she can do this, but she could also, no matter what, cooking is something you'll always use, okay? And cooking is something that as I got older, okay, there were a lot of, I remember when I got, was in my 20s and right out of culinary school, a lot of my friends didn't cook. So I would be like the popular one. I would throw big dinner parties and stuff like that and have people over. And it's just a great way to kind of bring friends together, things like that. So I encourage you, some of you have like great, amazing food knowledge. You've already got the presentation. So keep doing what you're doing. All right. And we'll take this next class. We'll see what we're going to do next. Does anybody have any questions? They're all quiet. They just want to eat.
Well, we've got,
We got?
if you're having fun, we've got a couple more sessions coming up. The next one is through the library again on February 26th from 4 to 5:30.
Yeah.
And then we're doing it again in April and in March. So, and we're looking at it doing, what were you saying, Jeremy? Pizza, maybe for one of
Yes.
them, and mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese is the other one. That's what I'm
Healthy
thinking of.
after school snacks we were looking at.
Yeah, so no problem, AJ. We've gotten all of your input. We haven't figured out what we're going to do next month, but you're going to get it's definitely going to be mac and cheese is going to be in there at some point. So I'm feeling we got it. And when we do the mac and cheese, we could do a couple of versions of it, basically. We'll do a gluten-free version if the parents are listening right now. It'll be a gluten-free pasta, and we could do 2 sauces, one dairy-free and one with dairy, if that's what we'd be throwing out there. So Kripalu accommodates many diets, so we're well-versed in this at this point. So are you guys all eating?
Jeremy and Mary from over here from Greenwich Library. I wanted to thank everybody, but also remind them we recorded this session. So if you wanted to refer back to it, we will put it on the Greenwich Library website. I can email it out to all of the people that registered today as well, so that you will have it and you can do it again. And thank you, Jasmine. You did a wonderful job. And thank you to Jeremy and to Mary. We really appreciate you coming to Greenwich Library. And we thank our friends of Greenwich Library for supporting this cooking series. We're ready for February 26th, so sign up at Greenwich Library.
And that's already that. Do we have a link for that, Deirdre?
GreenwichLibrary.org is the place to start, and you'll find it right in our calendar from there.
Excellent.
And then also, Jeremy and I are available for other sessions too, if there's specific things you want to learn how to do. And if you'd like to get on the mailing list for Chef Jeremy Rock-Smith, you can just send me an email at mary@maryyogi.com, and we'll put you on our mailing list for all of the events that we're going to be doing in the future.
Oh, and hey, if I didn't catch your chili on here, parents, tag me on Instagram, Chef Jeremy Rock-Smith, right? No, it's Jeremy Rock-Smith on Instagram.
It's Jeremy.
Tag me in that. Yeah, throw me in there, tag me, because I want to see this stuff. That's what's interesting about cooking this way, because I can see a little bit of what you're doing, but I never get the feedback until later on. So thank you, parents, for setting this up, because I think it's like amazing. It gives me, I'm so used to speaking and teaching adults that it's so refreshing to be on this other end, and it's awesome because I get to have Jasmine with me on it. So it's very, very well done. So thank you for coming out and doing this. So we'll catch you in a month. We'll catch you in February. So everybody stay warm, get your chili on, and we'll see you around. Be well, everyone.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming.